Twice was just an experiment? No more Koreans in K-pop? What the hell is Jyp 2.0? In this episode of Kpop Rantz.
Do you feel the vibes?
What's up, everybody? Big Will, K-pop for life, coming back at ya. And today we are going to be talking about Jyp 2.0. Now, if you're not familiar, I will put a link to this video in the description below. Basically, what happened today is Jyp himself came out and did what essentially is a investor meeting to drum up investors to get people to buy stock or give current stockholders and investors a look at what's going on in the future, to say their money is being spent on, and provide consumer confidence, etc. And oh, that's good coffee. That's good coffee. And I was impressed. Overall, I was very impressed. It was a well done, very likable business presentation. I work for a pretty large company. I've seen these kind of things before, and usually they're very dry and very boring. But in this case, it has something to do with K-pop, so I was actually interested. And I guess we're just going to break it down a little bit for you. So there's four primary things that you really need to know. First, I guess I'll tell you that they're moving into a new facility in 2 weeks, he said. And this new facility is going to have, state-of-the-art everything, like 9 dance studios, 18 vocal rooms, 7 recording studios, a couple mixing rooms, like organic, basically top of the line. None of the other record labels have this because JYP's growth for like the beginning of the company until 2017 was pretty flat, Overall, it was pretty steady. It never peaked up or down too much. It was more of what you would call a dependable stock. And then the last year, it just skyrocketed. It has increased 50%. And its overall ownership, sorry, my alarm. Its overall ownership or profitability, I think, tripled, something along those lines. I have to watch. I don't remember the exact numbers. Basically, they made a lot of money. And he credits it all to a new system that they're using, which essentially he's compartmentalizing the business. So in most larger companies, when you start growing and you become a medium-sized company to a larger-sized company, you start getting a lot of bureaucracy, trust me, and you start splitting people off and groups off into their own little functions, right? And what happens is you get the finance department, you get the public relations department, you get marketing, you get, development of R&D or whatever particular company you're working for. And that's what was sort of happening. And they started realizing the drawbacks to that. Now, that works in a strictly corporate setting because if you're working in something that has to do with the FDA or a very regulated environment, you need those type of things, those types of bureaucracy in place to keep the process slow and not let anybody jump the gun, and make sure that your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. And, when governing bodies such as the FDA or, whatever show up at your door, you're fully documented. Everything was done properly and appropriately according to the letter of the law. Otherwise, you will get your ass shut down. This is a totally different world. So what he's done is he has compartmentalized aspects of the business, and they did it by experimenting with Twice, which I find very, very interesting. And I want to say risky, but not really, because the fan base was so big already and so loyal that pretty much anything they do, people consume. And people have been wondering, including myself, wow, Twice has been putting out a shit ton of content. Shit ton of content, right? Probably triple that of any other group. Monthly, they're doing comebacks. And it is all basically by Jyp himself accredited to this new process of compartmentalizing. So Twice and a couple other groups eventually, but only Twice right now, has had a task force assigned to it. This task force is opposite of him. They're separate from him. They're like a small company within the company, and they're responsible for everything to do with Twice. That way, 100% of their focus is on Twice, and that is why they've been able to put out so much content. My immediate reaction was, that's awesome. what about quality of content? Because to me, quality is more important than quantity. And he pretty much addressed this later on because he straight up said exactly what I said. He said, if you start putting out too much content, quality is bound to slip. So this supposedly will all be addressed once they move into the new studio in 2 weeks, the new building, because they'll have all of those extra resources that I discussed earlier to help facilitate all those needs. And apparently they're going to have the 8th floor is going to be dedicated to 7 separate producers who will all be dedicated to the different groups or whatever. So I find that very interesting. I like the way they're going with this. There are some still drawbacks to it because they also discuss things such as the past, present, and future of K-pop. So the past was the growth of K-pop, the exciting, booming part of K-pop. The present is sort of what you see now, the sort of dabbling in foreign markets, reaching out to other, countries and groups of people and expanding your influence. The third one, and as he said, this is the next inevitable step, and he's absolutely correct. So he calls it globalization by localization. And this is essentially you're exporting culture, right? That's what they're going to do. So JYP himself has created a 6-member all Chinese boy group. He has, I don't know how many members, but an all Japanese girl group. And they're going to basically primarily be released into those very large markets. In doing so, they'll be exporting what I assume, because I haven't actually seen these groups yet, what I assume would be the culture of K-pop and what makes it great, and then basically doing it in Chinese or Russian or wherever else he decides to go with it. I'm okay with this. I mean, whatever you want to do, I don't care, because, some people will like it, some people won't. I don't know. I'll save my judgments. But what I do find interesting, what I do have a concern about is inevitably what will happen is the K-pop culture aspect, the thing that makes K-pop so, special, it makes it unique. I fear that will get lost as they translate it to other cultures, because those other cultures may demand that they conform, especially certain cultures around the world that tend to be more like that. They may demand that change. They may demand that it alter itself. And then I worry about like the watering down even further, because that's sort of what happened to K-pop that's moved to the West. It has been watered down a lot. That being said, they're a successful company who I'm sure have thought of this kind of stuff, because if my dumb fat ass is sitting in my basement watching a video immediately going, these people know what they're doing. I'm sure this stuff has been thought about and brainstormed over, and, possible solutions to these situations has already been thought up, and they're just not communicating that, because then that speaks possible hesitancy in doing this, which then can create negative atmosphere and not that positive vibe they want for investors. I get that. The final thing I want to touch on, though, is I really like the fact, so the Korean government is implementing for larger companies a 52-hour work week, meaning that nobody's allowed to work more than 52 hours. If you're not familiar, people in South Korea are overworked and probably underpaid, and they have the highest suicide rate, or one of the highest suicide rates in the world. And, all work and no play. He basically is pushing the concept of creativity through happiness. Now, a lot of American companies, and this I can only speak from my experience, I've worked at a lot of companies, a lot of Western companies try this, right? Especially when you get to the medium to large, they start trying to implement this, especially when their workforce becomes largely millennial and they sort of expect that type of environment. You get this type of thought process, and I'm all for it. I absolutely believe in a good work-life balance, work-life balance. However, the companies very rarely implement it properly, because they say all this nice stuff, right? They talk a big game, but when it comes down to it, if your ass doesn't stay at work and finish that fucking report, and I come in the next day and it's not on my desk, guess who's getting fired? So a lot of it is people blowing smoke up people's asses, unless from a top down that shit is strictly enforced and it becomes very ingrained in the culture of the company. Asian culture is very different from ours. The work life balance traditionally from my experience and in most of those countries, from what I've heard, seen, and people I've talked to, tends to be very work oriented. So this is going to be a big change for Korea to do this. I'm sure it's a very welcome change for a lot of people, especially the younger gen. And he has also brought on like therapists and psychiatrists on staff to help these K-pop artists deal with this incredible amount of stress in a more healthy manner than the ways they're doing it now, i.e., self-medicating or, whatever's going on behind the scenes no one sees, that everybody struggles with at some point in their life, up to suicide that, there's a big epidemic with, even amongst the K-pop idols recently, and people don't want that kind of negative press, and people don't want to see anybody get hurt. And I'm all for that. I think these kind of changes, you can tell, like, JYP speaks really good English. You can tell he's had a lot of experience in the West. And I think he's seen the benefit of some of the ways that Western businesses and the culture in business does things over the Korean and Asian side, and then has seen the benefits of the way that the Korean and the Asian businesses tend to function over the Western influences that are better. And I'm hoping what his idea is to fuse it, because I think that I hope it works, because what will happen inevitably is it will permeate the other record labels. They'll see this, and as one of the leading industry leaders, others will follow suit, especially up-and-coming ones, because idols and prospective talent's going to see this, and they're going to go there over the other places, and people want to be more appealing to prospective talent. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's about time that the industry adapted to the insane pressure and workload that's put on these individuals. And I have to commend JYP for doing that. All in all, I really enjoyed the press conference. I like this kind of stuff usually if it's something I care about. I think that JYP is a very likable, genuine person. Is he perfect? No, of course not. But I think that the ideas and stuff that he presented is very good. It's forward looking. There's some flaws and potential problems in it that I can foresee happening, and watering down of K-pop, K-pop losing its identity. But in order for it to grow, I understand from a business perspective why they're doing that, and why other companies are probably doing the same thing right now, or will shortly follow suit. I will still listen to it as long as it sounds like K-pop, because there's something about the sound of K-pop that I love. But yeah, I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on all this. Let me know in the comments below if you have any concerns, or if you have any kudos for what JYP and his company are doing. Again, I encourage you to go watch the link in the description below. It's about 25 minutes long. It's definitely worth a watch. It gives you a nice insight into sort of obviously how an idol company works, how a K-pop company works, and what goes on behind the scenes. And you can really tell, at least in this one, that they're recognizing the flaws in the current system, and they're trying to adapt to change to them. Again, go check it out. Thanks again for watching, guys. And don't forget to keep on popping, K-poppers. Remember, it's not a trend. It's a lifestyle. Deuces.
Do you feel the vibes?